What's up guys, it's John at Daddy Directive. Today the weather is so nice. Finally the spring has come. Toronto has a long winter. When the weather is nice and the spring has come, we have to come outside to enjoy this weather. Today I'm going to talk about separation anxiety in babies, and also I'm going to share tips on how to handle those separation anxiety. But before we move on to that, let's hit that like button to really help with the channel with the YouTube algorithm. So let's get right to it. You would have noticed with your baby that around until 8 months old, they didn't really have an issue with you going away for a little bit. Babies will have separation anxiety signs showing between 8 to 18 months. The fact that they are experiencing separation anxiety means that they are meeting their brain development milestones, because around that 15-month period is when they start to have a little bit more exertion of their own opinion. If they notice that mom and dad are about to leave, they'll say, "No, you have to stay here. I want you to be here." It's actually a good thing. And the fact that they actually showing separation anxiety means that they have actually formed a very healthy and strong bond with the caregiver, whether that be with mom or dad or anyone else who is taking care of the baby majority of the time. If they don't actually experience any separation anxiety between 8 and 18 months, that actually raises more flags. Now, coming back to the 15-month separation anxiety, their brain has developed enough that they don't want to be separated, but it's not quite developed enough to know the difference in the length of time. So from the perspective of the baby, when a mom is leaving the room or leaving the house or dropping them off at a daycare, to them, the length of time at least feels the same way, whether the mom was just gone for a few minutes to the washroom compared to few hours by having them dropped off at a daycare or with a babysitter. The reason they have this separation anxiety around the 15-month period is because they are now aware of the fact that mom and dad exist, but they're just not there in front of them. In addition to that, the anxiety comes from the fact that they don't know how long you're going to be away for. So what are the things that could possibly trigger a separation anxiety? One of the things that could actually trigger separation anxiety is saying goodbye. A lot of parents make a mistake of thinking they'll just sneak out. Now, that is the worst thing that you could do to a baby, especially during the time when they're feeling a lot of separation anxiety, because effectively you are breaking the trust that the baby has. Let's look at it from the perspective of the baby. The baby comes to, let's say, a daycare, or they are left with a babysitter and they are playing with a toy, and then they look up and suddenly their mom and dad's gone, and the baby has no idea where you're gone, and when you're coming back, he or she cries out like crazy, "Mom, Dad, where are you?" But you're no longer there. You're not responding. And the baby feels like, okay, they're not coming back. I'm abandoned. I don't know what to do. That itself could be kind of a mini trauma for them. So next time they come to a similar situation, that babysitter comes home or they are being dropped off at the daycare and they realize, uh-oh, something's off. I had a bad experience last time with this. So even before that you say goodbye or do anything, they realize this is a bad experience and they'll start to cry. They'll start to have that anxiety build up and have a harder time controlling that emotion. So yes, even if the saying goodbye could trigger the separation anxiety, that's something that you have to work through. You can't just cope out by trying to sneak out when the baby is not looking. That's only going to make things worse, and it may work first couple of times, but after a few times, they'll catch on. Another thing that could actually cause a separation anxiety is when you take them to a large gathering. From the perspective of a baby, when there are a lot of people around, that they could actually lose the mom and dad in the midst of all that people. So they could suddenly start being really clingy and holding on to you, asking to hold them, hug them, etc. When they show this kind of anxiety, don't ignore it. Acknowledge it and comfort them so they can actually be able to control and feel more secure. The fact that your kid or your baby or toddler is having a separation anxiety with you is actually one of the greatest compliments that you can have as a parent, that you are doing a great job and that he or she finds comfort and security when the baby is with you. Another thing that could actually increase the separation anxiety or trigger it is if the baby or the toddler is having a physically hard time. Either they're very stressed out, or if they're overly tired, they have a much tougher time regulating those emotions. Same thing with adults. I mean, for me, I have much shorter temper when I feel sick or when I'm overly tired. My fuses get really short. And it's exactly the same thing with baby. And if anything, it gets much worse with the baby because they have a lot harder time controlling their bodily functions as well as their emotional functions. If the baby hadn't slept very well the night before, it's possible that when it comes to the time that you're trying to separate with the baby, that he or she may give you a much tougher time than usual. Another thing that actually affects the separation anxiety and could trigger it in some ways is the actual temperament of the baby. Obviously, if you have an easy temperament baby, they tend to be able to adapt to the foreign or new situation better by the pure definition, so they have an easier time dealing with the separation anxiety. And I actually made a video on temperaments, so you can click the link above to check out how you can deal with different temperament child. How you raise a child with one type of temperament could be very drastically different to when you're raising another type. Now, the last thing that you should also be aware is that if the baby or the toddler is experiencing separation anxiety in a way that is showing extreme reaction, like vomiting or relentless worrying, you shouldn't brush that off. You should talk to your doctor to see what could be the cause. So what are the things that you could do to help deal with separation anxiety? The first thing is, like anything in life, practice makes perfect. So actually practice separating. So what do you mean by practicing separating? You could actually make it a little bit more playful by playing something like peekaboo, leaving the room and then coming back, making it into a play. So when you repeat that over time, child will begin to sense, okay, even if my mom or dad is leaving and I can't see them, I know that they're going to come back. He's giving that the assurances that they're not going to be abandoned forever, that mom and dad will come back when they need them. So once they build that trust and have that security built in, they'll have much easier time dealing with separation anxiety. When it comes to the time and point where you have to leave the baby, don't draw out the process. If you have to leave the baby, and as long as they're not showing a violent reaction at that particular moment, leave and make the separation or make the goodbye as sweet and short as possible. The longer you make it, it actually makes it more painful for them to deal with, and it really tires them out, which in turn will make them more worried and less secure because they're physically tired and they are running out of energy to deal with these kind of emotional changes. Try to have like a stuffed animal or a favorite blanket, so they have some sort of object they can use to find comfort in when you are not there. So having a favorite blanket or a stuffed animal will have them associate a comfort with those kind of objects where they'll be able to self-soothe when the mom and dad is not there. And building on the idea of sleep, try to give your child a little bit of independence, especially after their nap. So if you notice on your baby monitor that your baby or child has woken up from their nap, don't just rush into the room trying to comfort them if they're not crying. If they're having a perfectly good enough time playing in the crib by themselves, let them play for a bit so they are able to enjoy the time being alone. And once they get used to that, they'll have a much easier time being separated with the mom and dad. And like I said, this is assuming that your baby woke up, is not just crying out for you. Lastly, guys, when the baby or the child is showing separation anxiety, acknowledge it and accept the idea that it is a perfectly normal developmental milestone. And they're not going to be clingy to you until the rest of their life. They're not going to stay clingy or have a separation anxiety when they're going to universities. If anything, in a few years' time, that you feel that you're not as needed to your child anymore, and you're going to miss this. You're going to miss the fact that they used to miss you and they always wanted you because you were the world to them. Regulate yourself as a parent and enjoy the moment, and understand that there's nothing wrong with the fact that your child is looking for you, especially during this time. Just understand why they may be feeling that way and how you can make it so that they feel much easier and much more secure as they grow up. Guys, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you find the tips useful. If you did, please hit that like button and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. I post on Mondays and Thursdays. As always, thank you for watching and happy parenting.